Swiggity swag. What's in the bag? Yeah, that's the best you're getting for an intro. I would just want to highlight some of my favorite moments from day 9 of the Rittenhouse trial. And I kind of want to keep it concise and get into it, so check this out.
Under those circumstances, that having an AR-15 pointed buttressing up against your chest would not be utter disregard for human life if believed. To me, that's where it begins and ends. There is no other explanation. So first degree, second degree lesser included, first degree reckless are all appropriate. Second degree reckless doesn't fit.
Did you want to respond?
Discussing the 2 accounts of murder, which they said they would take, and the 1 account of being reckless, and then there's a second account of being reckless, which he's like, nah, we can't take that because you're either reckless or you're not, which I kind of agree with. But
the court heard the evidence. In the distance, Mr. Grosskreutz testified that he was about 3 feet away, whatever it was, from him when he was shot. The gun, Mr. Grosskreutz pointed the gun at the defendant. Mr. Rittenhouse then fired. So I think that first degree, attempted first degree, well, you can't attempt a reckless act, right?
I would have told you, I would have agreed with you some years ago, but I'm not sure. I don't know the answer, and I certainly am going to have to hit the books on that.
Okay.
That was certainly once the law.
I don't even know how to explain this. This stupid barrel the gun. Here's the prosecution blaming the defendants. Well, here's the prosecution claiming that the gun is illegal, and then blaming the defendants for not giving them evidence that the gun was illegal.
Now, give me the bases for acquittal on each of the greater crimes and conviction of the lesser. Item number 3 on the 3rd page. I don't recall that evidence.
I would agree there was no evidence that he...
Then how can I give that instruction? Oh, because they have the burden of proof.
It's not a strict liability offense.
Yeah,
He's 17 years old.
Yeah, if there's an absence in the evidence, that's kind of a problem for you, no?
What do you mean?
You would need to disprove the affirmative defense.
We don't believe it was ever raised. They never gave any evidence as to barrel lengths or that it
Oh yes, there was definitely barrel length evidence. Certainly, come on, it's not a strange issue in this case. I mean, we've been talking about it for months.
Well, and I agree we've been talking about it for months, and the defense should have measured the barrel in front of the jury and said the barrel.
You have the burden of proof.
That they didn't. If they raise it, they never raised this issue.
Well, did he ask the detective?
But I think it's quite clear that in a self-defense case, second-degree intentional is appropriate because the jury could very easily find in this case that it was not perfect self-defense. As a person who is running at him, being told or perhaps even witnessing himself that the defendant has already shot someone and gravely injured them, has already shot at another person missing, and then gone in to try and disarm him, the jury could find that it was not perfect self-defense.
Are you disputing that?
No, first and second?
First and second?
No.
Intentional or okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
At some point or another, he did say he didn't want to kill anybody. That's
Anybody
true.
that night.
But that's not the element. If if we're a first degree, then that'd be another matter. This is reckless endangerment.
We're talking about the defendant's mind and if he had utter disregard.
No, we're talking about how obvious was the danger.
Agreed. The state, under their evidence, has shown utter disregard. What we're fighting about is that it's not.
I'm still struggling with what is the basis upon which the jury could acquit of the greater and convict of the lesser, because that's the standard.
It was like, but they love to say.
So then the reckless, the defendant testified directly that he did not intend to kill him. Judge, in his testimony, the defendant said, essentially, I was in fear for my life, but I didn't mean to kill him. The defendant, again, while testifying, said he did not mean to kill Mr. Huber. The defendant denied that it was obviously dangerous. He said he did not know if it was going to kill him. He did not. The defendant said he didn't mean to kill him. Essentially, it's the same argument that's been being made all morning.
Well, the defendant did testify that he didn't want to kill anyone.
I understand that, but I think somebody would say the behavior is either reckless or it's not.
If they believe the defendant, they have a basis for the lesser included. There is a basis.
The
If they
defendant said
accept the defendant's
I didn't want to
testimony,
kill anyone.
that I didn't want to kill anyone, that he bought the gun because it was
That
cool.
would be that. I might even buy into that. I might. Except that that would be if we were talking about a charge of count
Or
4, because intending to kill is not an element of this crime.
shows whether or not he utter disregard. If he's firing and not considering.
You're getting to the ultimate fact. I'm telling you what the factors are and determining whether there's utter disregard, and you're telling me that one of the factors to be considered on whether it's utter disregard is utter disregard. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, like I said, I believe the defendant's testimony gives a reasonable jury a basis to find a second degree.
I don't. So I will not give that instruction or submit that verdict. And the reason is because I do not feel there is a basis in the evidence for acquittal on the greater and conviction on the lesser.
I don't know when not wanting to kill anybody became a bad thing, but what was he doing there with a big gun if he didn't want to kill anybody? The prosecution should win this, people, obviously.
And let's talk about the incident involving Jump Kick Man. What he was doing, what the defendant was doing, firing a gun at a human being.
Yes.
He hasn't alleged that he wasn't firing at him. He wasn't saying I was just trying to scare him off with a couple of shots across his bow. He didn't say that. Why he was engaged in it, and he's given his reasons, and I don't think the state disputes them. He was doing it to prevent the man from attacking him, and the state says the man had the right to attack him, and the defense said he didn't. Either way, he was doing it for what he was doing. It was purposeful. How dangerous was the conduct? Well, the defense is not disputing it wasn't dangerous behavior. I don't think they're going to argue that. How obvious was the danger?
I love the judge destroying the prosecution argument that just because he has a big gun means he was being dangerous and reckless.
Not know that he denied knowing or that his bullets were more dangerous than other types of bullets. He denied knowing that his gun was more powerful than other guns. So, again, I think the evidence most.
I don't think that is exactly what was stated. For example, the discussion about what kind of guns are more powerful, that wasn't actually it. I was kind of intrigued about it because it was a close contact, and the suggestion was being made by the questioner, Mr. Binger, that the rifle is because it's a more powerful weapon was more dangerous or something to that effect. And of course, in a close contact situation like that, it may be that the pistol is a much more desirable weapon. Now, the defense has submitted, and I don't think you submitted anything standard except standard on that. Unless you're
endangering safety charges, so we can skip that argument. That goes to his belief in what, and they never specify which law.
they have to raise the issue.
There's no evidence on whether or not he has a certificate of accomplishment to obtain authorization for hunting, which is the state's position all along, is that he would have to have that. So I don't believe that is raising it. And the defense had every opportunity. They brought the gun over here most every day the last few days. They could have gone to any number of witnesses to measure it and raise this issue, and they did not.
They don't have to measure it. That's the burden of proof on the state.
I understand that, but it wasn't raised.
Did you believe there was any violation for the barrel length of the gun?
That would put it in issue if the question is like that.
Well, also the statute reads, this section applies only to a person under 18 years of age who possesses or is armed with a rifle or a shotgun if the person is in violation of section 941.28 or is not in compliance with the two sections mentioned. So it's an or, it's not an and. We don't have to show all three. So they may have raised the issue with...
You have to show one of the three. You have to show any of the three which the defense has put in issue.
So
The defendant has not put in issue the certificate of accomplishment.
correct.
The defendant has put in issue the length of the barrel.
And Judge, if we can unpack this for a minute. So the exception says it's a violation of the law if you're under 18 and possess a short barrel shotgun or rifle. Okay? That's one way you can be convicted. And it says, or are in violation of Wisconsin statute 29304 only applies to people 16 years of age or under. Because he has to be in violation of both 29304 and 29593. I concede he's in violation of 29593. However, 29304, he's 17. It doesn't apply to him.
The motion to dismiss attacks the complaint. And the complaint was adequately pled under the law. That was not an endorsement of the state's position on the case. And to use a trite expression, the rubber hits the road here at the trial. So now you have to prove everything that the statute requires. And do you dispute the fact that you need to prove that the defendant was under 18 at the time of the incident? You don't. That's not in dispute.
That he's under 18, yes.
And that the barrel length was less than that allowed by law, or was not within the range permitted by law.
We don't have to prove that.
You don't have to prove that.
But it's or. I mean, there's no real... Our argument is that they did not raise it. I don't think it's really a disputed fact. But we believe they did not properly raise this first part of the exception. The second part of the exception, they've conceded 29.5...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
They've conceded the 29.593 portion. He did not have a hunting certificate. So then we go to 29304, and if it is allowed that simply being 17, he is in compliance with that, it swallows the whole statute, and the statute makes no sense. So if the statute
makes no sense, you're out of luck.
Well, if the statute is valid, it's clear as day that it says a person under 18 years of age.
I would not say that about this law.
Well, I would maybe not say that about the exception, but the actual law, 2A, is quite clear.
It is.
Sure. Any person under 18 years of age who possesses or goes armed with a
that's not the whole
dangerous weapon.
statute. That's not the whole statute.
Our position is that he is not in compliance with 29.304 and 29.593. Scoffed at when I mentioned it before, but 16 and 17-year-olds can hunt alone in this state if they have the correct certificate.
Okay.
Under 16 cannot, and that is what 29.304 is addressing. This statute is addressing hunting.
No, the basic law is that the rubric is not part of the statute.
The rubric?
The title.
He violated hunting laws, but he wasn't hunting. The prosecution said it was a self-defense case.
But I think it's quite clear that in a self-defense case, second-degree intentional
self-defense situation. So I don't know why they're bringing up hunting, but it provided the judge a good opportunity to teach the prosecution about basic law.
This statute is addressing hunting.
No, the basic law is that the rubric is not part of the statute.
A conversation about Rosenbaum, he said, well, he provoked them, right? It's like, well, what situation did he do? What did he do to provoke him? And he said
something about the one person running after another was provocation. How is that provocation? We're talking now about you're alleging that the defendant was running behind Mr. Rosenbaum, and that was provocative?
That he chased him there.
Your Honor, you can talk all about the evidence. He's walking, especially in the video that was put in yesterday through Mr. Hernandez.
Yeah.
He's walking within steps. Rosenbaum and Zeminski are lighting the garbage can on fire. He sees my client walking down the street with a fire extinguisher, and there's fires down at Car Source. Mr. Rosenbaum knows where he's going. He's already threatened to kill him. He sees them coming. He's got very distinct purple gloves. He goes down and he lies in wait. There's no chasing going on whatsoever.
Where's the chasing? And how? Where is the chasing? And how is that provocation?
The provocation is the raising of the gun.
Oh, so because a moment ago you said that the chasing was provocation,
I believe it
which
adds-
of course it could be
I believe it adds
if it's
to
in the
I'm
evidence.
sorry. I believe it adds to the provocation that he chased him there and then immediately raised the gun.
He wants the instruction, and then he's going to argue what he just said 5 minutes ago.
Well, and we're free to argue that.
Just like we're free not to stipulate to the third element.
What am I looking at?
I think you're looking at the epitome of clown world, Judge. You see, people who are on the prosecution side just wants to argue. And that's sad. That's very, very sad. I can't believe. Look, they're just we're free to argue. We're just gonna argue. That's what they said. They're just arguing. They're not even following basic law. I got one last clip about a judge's view on technology.
Okay, so there won't be anybody doing that. Now, but you bring up a good point. If the jury goes into deliberation and wants to look at some of this evidence, of course, one would read the law, I think, nowadays to say that any scrutiny by the jury should be in the presence of the court here in the courtroom. I very, very strongly disagree with that. I think that's antiquated. I think that that's based actually on a case I tried right here. Once again, I was there. State against Maurice Pucci Franklin. And I'm not going to go into my usual dissertation on that, but that led to, I think, the Anderson case about showing videos and things. The law actually developed around recorded statements of the accused as opposed to videos of the actual events. But I think the general rule now is supposed to be that we're supposed to do all this under judicial scrutiny, and they have to ask permission, and then we have to supervise. One of the things that I find most offensive is that we've got to scrutinize it to make sure they don't play it too many times, so they don't overemphasize some aspect of the evidence. I think that's what the cases say. And I think, how dare us, the founders of the Constitution, have juries because they don't trust the judges, and the judges have spent the last 225 years returning the compliment by telling, always suspecting that the jurors are going to be up to no good. If this were a bench trial, and like this, I watched it. How many times have I watched that video now? And you know what? I could sit and I could watch it maybe 50 more times. And in fact, the famous Boston Marathon bomber was resolved because an agent from the FBI watched the video over and over and over and over again and finally realized what nobody else had caught, which was that Mr. Tsarnaev, who is now under death sentence, temporarily not. We don't know what the outcome will be in the Supreme Court, but that everybody else was looking one way and he was looking the other. And it took numerous times looking at the video to solve that crime. So for me to monitor how many times the jury looks at something, if we're a bench trial and I looked at it 100 times and I finally decided I better not look at it anymore because I might prejudice myself, I'd get reversed because that's an absurd thing to say. So I don't want to sit here and monitor how many times they look at something. I did that once when when it was an attempted murder case of a police officer, and the jurors came down and they're told they can't even discuss it with one another, but they can't resist, and so they're saying, oh, look at that, and then I send them upstairs and they're not looking at it again, and I think that's really frightening. So I think if they want to see the exhibits, we should give them the equipment to see it and let them do what they want with it. So that's what I think. Now let me hear from you.
Judge, I agree with you that is antiquated. I think this is the ideal case where having would be great. I to look into error. I asked even if there was a stipulation, current law, and also, and I'm not saying it would be ineffective, but they thought it would raise an ineffective assistance of counsel claim if there is a conviction. I do not want this case to be a test case with the explosion of technology in the last couple decades. It needs to be changed, and perhaps we should follow the procedures as antiquated they may be.
Defense?
I don't want them having a free-for-all up in the deliberation room.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to cram it down on this case. One day, with a short trial,
One that you're willing to do twice?
yeah. This is crazy. It's just absurd.
Alright, that's it. Goodbye. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter and check out my Discord. All in the description, by the way. I hope Rumble pops off. How about that? Yeah, Rumble. And then I'm trying to be a Pokemon Unite Master. So, yeah. And I'll play Smash Bros. I don't know how to end it.